Good morning. This is Talking with a Goodman. I'm Jay Goodman, and this is the Screwtape Letters Lenten series, and we are in the double digits, number 10. Talking with a Goodman is a show aimed at calling all men to be a good man. Being a good man is hard. It really is. Believe me, it's hard for me. Daily I work, though, sometimes fail, to keep pride out of my life. We have to remember we are amazing. God made us for greatness amidst our failures. When we mess up, when we have those lows in our lives, those undulations in life, as C.S. Lewis mentions in the letters, we must remember to not allow shame in and to continue living in the life and living a repentant life. My good friend Joe said that recently, and it really encouraged me. Join me in striving to be a good man for your family, your church, yourself, and God. So today's main theme for letter 10 is titled A Well-Formed Moral Conscience, according to Marlon De La Torre's study guide. The theme verse for today is from Romans 1:20-21, which says, "So they are without excuse, for although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their senseless minds were darkened." Wow, it's very sobering. It's a really sobering verse. So with that, let's read today's Screwtape letter. Good morning. This is Screwtape Letters number 10. My dear Wormwood, I was delighted to hear from Triptweeze that your patient has made some very desirable new acquaintances and that you seem to have used this event in a really promising manner. I gather that the middle-aged married couple who called at his office are just the sort of people we want him to know. Rich, smart, superficially intellectual, and brightly skeptical about everything in the world. I gather they are even vaguely pacifist, not on moral grounds, but from an ingrained habit of belittling anything that concerns the great mass of their fellow men, and from a dash of purely fashionable and literary communism. This is excellent, and you seem to have made good use of all his social, sexual, and intellectual vanity. Tell me more. Did he commit himself deeply? I don't mean the words. There is a subtle play of looks and tones and laughs by which a mortal can imply that he is of the same party as those to whom he is speaking. That is the kind of betrayal you should specially encourage, because the man does not fully realize it himself, and by the time he does, you will have made withdrawal difficult. No doubt he must very soon realize that his own faith is in direct opposition to the assumptions on which all the conversation of his new friends is based. I don't think that matters much provided that you can persuade him to postpone any open acknowledgement of the fact, and this with the aid of shame, pride, modesty, and vanity will be easy to do. As long as the postponement lasts, he will be in a false position. He will be silent when he ought to speak, and laugh when he ought to be silent. He will assume, at first only by his manner, but presently by his words, all sorts of cynical and skeptical attitudes which are not really his. But if you play him well, they may become his. All mortals tend to turn into the thing they're pretending to be. This is elementary. The real question is how to prepare for the enemy's counterattack. The first thing is to delay as long as possible the moment at which he realizes this new pleasure as a temptation. Since the enemy's servants have been preaching about the world as one of the great standard temptation for 2,000 years, this might seem difficult to do. But fortunately, they have said very little about it for the last few decades. Since the enemy's servants have been preaching about the world as one of the great standard temptations for 2,000 years, this might seem difficult to do. But fortunately, they have said very little about it for the last few decades. In modern Christian writings, though, I see much, indeed more than I like, about mammon. I see few of the old warnings about worldly vanities, the choice of friends, and the value of time. All that your patient would probably classify as Puritanism, and may I remark in passing that the value we have given to that word is one of the really solid triumphs of the last 100 years? By it, we rescue annually thousands of humans from temperance, chastity, and sobriety of life. Sooner or later, however, the real nature of his new friends must become clear to him, and then your tactics must depend on the patient's intelligence. If he is a big enough fool, you can get him to realize the character of the friends only while they are absent. Their presence can be made to sweep away all criticism. If this succeeds, he can be induced to live, as I have known many humans live, for quite long periods, two parallel lives. He will not only appear to be, but actually be, a different man in each of the circles he frequents. Failing this, there is a subtler and more entertaining method. He can be made to take a positive pleasure in the perception that the two sides of his life are inconsistent. This is done by exploiting his vanity. He can be taught to enjoy kneeling beside the grocer on Sunday just because he remembers that the grocer could not possibly understand the urbane and mocking world which he inhabited on Saturday evening, and contrariwise to enjoy the bawdy and blasphemy over the coffee with these admirable friends all the more because he is aware of a deeper spiritual world within him which they cannot understand. You see the idea? The worldly friends touch him on one side and the grocer on the other, and he is the complete, balanced, complex man who sees round them all. Thus, while being permanently treacherous to at least two sets of people, he will feel, instead of shame, a continual undercurrent of self-satisfaction. Finally, if all else fails, you can persuade him in defiance of conscience to continue the new acquaintance on the ground that he is, in some unspecified way, doing these people good by the mere fact of drinking their cocktails and laughing at their jokes, and that to cease to do so would be priggish, intolerant, and of course puritanical. Meanwhile, you will of course take the obvious precaution of seeing that this new development induces him to spend more than he can afford and to neglect his work and his mother. Her jealousy and alarm, and his increasing evasiveness or rudeness, will be invaluable for the aggravation of the domestic tension. Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape. So the main theme is to have a well-formed moral conscience. To put this into perspective, basically, according to Marlon, is to be careful who your friends are, really. In this letter, there's a lot of help going on from Screwtape. Help. And Wormwood. But not the kind of help you would want if you were trying to be a good Christian man and be close to God, right? So, bad help. Screwtape is trying to get Wormwood to help the patient have friends with that, take him away from his faith. They do this by helping him into a corner, essentially, where he's forced to make a choice. Keep the friends he has or keep his faith. And he's given a moral challenge, too. Marlon says to follow his moral conscience and move away from these friends or ignore his moral conscience and keep them. So there's two things he has to choose from. Screwtape tells Wormwood, as long as the postponement lasts, he will be in a false position. And that's from the letter. The patient has to remember, and we need to remember, where true friendship comes from. It's not rooted in man, but in man's relationship with Jesus. For us to have a proper friendship with another person, the friendship must be a Christ-centered one to truly, truly benefit us in life as Christians. The demons are basically continually taking advantage of the troughs and the low periods in the patient's undulations of life, like I mentioned in the beginning. Catechism 1776 to 1777 is our main catechism part for today, although there's a greater, I think it's 1776 to 1785 that we really should focus on. I'll get to that at the end. But 1776 says, deep within his conscience, man discovers a law which he has not laid upon himself, but which he must obey. Its voice, ever calling him to love and to do what is good and to avoid evil, sounds in his heart at the right moment. For man has in his heart a law inscribed by God. His conscience is man's most secret core and his sanctuary. There he is alone with God, whose voice echoes in his steps. Holy cow. So I feel like 1777 from the Catechism should also, we should go through it real quick. Moral conscience present at the heart of the person enjoins him at the appropriate moment to do good and to avoid evil. It also judges particular choices, approving those that are good and denouncing those that are evil. It bears witness to the authority of truth in reference to the supreme good to which the human person is drawn, and it welcomes the commandments. When he listens to his conscience, the prudent man can hear God speaking. So as Catholics, we must have a proper Catholic character about our life as we engage in friendships around us. Marlon speaks of 5 characteristics of a moral conscience that he extracted from Catechism 1777. So the 5 things are: it judges particular choices, it approves good choices, it denounces evil choices, it bears witness to the authority of truth in the supreme good to which man is drawn, and it welcomes the commandments. Isn't it interesting that all these characteristics are sort of summed up by a quote by St. Augustine? It says, "Return to your conscience, question it. Turn inward, brethren, and in everything you do, see God as your witness." We need to remember, I need to remember, that God sees everything we do and that we can't allow the distractions of life to warp our conscience and what we perceive as right and wrong. Turning inward and allowing our relationship with God to strengthen our conscience for good works is what true Christian character is. Man's conscience needs to be directed to God is the point of all that, basically. Marlon writes that the dignity of the human person implies and requires uprightness of moral conscience. So a properly formed conscience does 4 things based on what we've learned today and from this amazing study guide too. It acts in truth, it seeks the dignity of the human person, it exercises prudence, and uses the Word of God as a light for the journey. So I would challenge you to go through the catechism set, like I said in the beginning, 1776 to 1785, and really allow that to speak to you, because it's just such a treasure. The whole thing's a treasure, but for today, the 1776 to 1785 references in the catechism are just amazing. So that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to get a hold of me, my email, as always, is jgoodman.deepadventure@gmail.com. And if you want to donate, my Venmo is @jgoodman75, @JAYGoodman75. Check out bearschoolofmanliness.com. It's amazing, it's affordable, and it's a good time to be a part of that and be a part of other men's lives and really help each other grow and strengthen each other. There's just so much amazing content on there that's designed, like I mentioned, to help us grow closer to God and be a strong man, like a truly strong Catholic man. So there's also a section on there called Mama Bear's Cave, and it's just all about the moms out there, and how they support and strengthen and encourage each other. So lastly, one last thing, stay tuned as we go through these videos. I'm going to start talking about a special drawing, a giveaway that I'm doing at the end. So like, share, subscribe, please. Share it on Facebook, and yeah, get ready for that drawing. It's going to be awesome. And I'll see you all tomorrow. I hope your Lent is going well. I hope you're learning a lot as we go through this Lenten cleanse together. Pray for me. I'm praying for all of you, and I look forward to tomorrow. I'm out of here.